Hi, and welcome to this special post-Christmas episode of the Amateur Wino. Today I'm drinking Rioja, which is a wine from Spain, a particular region of Spain called Rioja, and it's made from a grape called Tempranillo. And this one is from a very traditional Rioja producer named R. Lopez de Heredia. And this is actually a very special winery to me in the sense that it was one of their wines that basically started my love affair with wines. Many years ago, I was at a restaurant called La Dama, which is a highly rated, I think it gets a Michelin star, a very highly rated restaurant, and I didn't know the first thing about wine. So I asked the waiter for a recommendation, and he brought me a glass of Lopez de Heredia. And this wine, it probably was made even a little bit more special to me because it took me a while to find it here in the United States. I wasn't even sure what the name of the wine was because when the waiter told me in Barcelona, he said it really fast in Spanish, and I think all I caught was Heredia. So it took me probably a couple of years to find this again in New York, but fortunately I did, and since then I've been drinking their wines, probably trying it once a year, and I always love it, so I wanted to share this one with you guys. This bottling is called the Viña Bosconia, and it's from the 2001 vintage. So now just to tell you a little bit about the wines of Lopez de Heredia, they're considered a very traditional Rioja producer, meaning that they do everything the old style way. They don't have, huge, stainless steel tanks and all sorts of, machinery. Everything that they can do kind of the old world way they do instead of having, cooling apparatus and so forth. They open the winery doors to cool the wines and so forth. I mean, it's just an example of very naturally kind of made wines. And I think it shows in the profile of the wine. It has a very kind of old world flavor to it, meaning that it has that same kind of earthiness and kind of cigar box aromas and stuff that I tend to get from a lot of old Bordeaux. And I think that this wine kind of offers a lot of the similar things to Bordeaux for me, at least the older, kind of more traditional styled Bordeaux, meaning that the wines are not heavily extracted, not huge fruit bombs, not tons of oak on it. And this wine, it tends to be medium body, as I find most Tempranillos to be, but even more so than your average Rioja. Because Lopez de Heredia is a very traditional producer, I think they rely more on kind of subtle, complex aromas, more so than hitting you with lots of big fruit. So let's go ahead and try this wine. On the nose, I'm getting the kinds of things I talked to you about, that kind of wood, kind of cedar wood kind of smell that you get from, it makes me think of humidors, like the big, kind of boxes for holding cigars that are made, I think it's out of cedar wood, but I'm not really sure. But it has that kind of wood spice kind of character to it. And definitely some red fruits on the nose. On the palate, it offers a lot of plummy, tangy fruit, which is, I really like it. It kind of makes me want to kind of keep having more, kind of gives me that puckery feeling when you have citrus fruits or that kind of thing. And that really kind of brings me back to having more. This bottle has actually been open for a couple nights now. It's now the 26th of December, but I opened it on Christmas Eve. So it's been open for a couple days, and it's a little more mellow than it was a few days ago. On the first night, this wine right out of the bottle was probably a little bit tangy for sipping on its own, but it went great with food because the acidity just kind of cuts right through the flavors of the food and kind of helps give the wine definition even when it's kind of competing for, competing for your attention with the food that you're having. Now, by the time that it's 48 hours, it's been open, it's tasting a little more mellow and really, really nice. I actually, in order to keep my wines a little fresher when I'm having them, over the course of a number of different evenings, I just recork them and I put them in the fridge. And sometimes when I really want to kind of keep them ultra fresh, I'll re-pour the wine into a smaller bottle, and you can just fill it all the way to the top and seal it. and that keeps the wine ultra fresh because there isn't room for oxygen at the top of the bottle to oxidize the wine and make it go bad. So if you just do that and you put it in the fridge, in my experience, the wines hold a good 3-4 days without much, loss of flavor. And honestly, it can go longer than that if you're not going to be drinking for a couple days or something like that. And you still want to save a wine, by all means, just throw it in the fridge. Like most red wines from Rioja, this wine is made mostly of Tempranillo, but it also blends in several other grape varieties, including Garnacha, which some of you may know as Grenache, Graciano, and Mazuelo, which some of you may know as Carignan. Now, the Graciano is added to add acidity to the wine, which shows very clearly in this one, and the Mazuelo is added for additional weight and body. The Garnacha adds a bit of spice character. This is the Reserva version of the Vino Bosconia, so I'm sure a lot of you are probably familiar with, reserve wines. In the case of Lopez de Heredia, I think it means that they hold their wine in barrels for a little longer to go from their basic level, which is called crianza in Rioja, to the Reserva level. I actually really am a big fan of Lopez de Heredia wines, not just because they taste good, but also they're really, really ageable and they're very affordable. This bottle cost me about $30, and I'm drinking it in 2009. It's a 2001 bottle, so it's about an 8-year-old wine at this point, but this is a wine that could, age for a really, really long time. I don't think it's even in its prime yet. I think it probably will hit its prime like maybe when it's 12 years old. So I'll try to buy another bottle and revisit it in 2013. And the other thing is it can age for a lot longer than that. I was lucky enough to taste a little bit of a Vino Bosconia Gran Reserva, which just means, perhaps slightly better lots of the wine, but also aged in oak barrels for longer than the Reserva. That wine was 1976 vintage. I just tasted it this year. So we're talking about a wine that was a good 33 years old, and it tasted very lively, completely in its prime. So definitely look for the Lopez de Heredia wines as a wine that you can buy at a reasonable price and have it be ageable. And that's tough to find in the fine wine category. So that's another reason why this is one of my favorite producers. So I'm going to go back to the wine now. Taste it again. I'm getting a lot of those kind of exotic spice characters. I was talking about kind of a wood spice thing, a little bit of earth, a little mushroomy thing, and definitely lots of plummy red fruits. So give this a shot. It's really one of my favorite producers of all time, and I try and have a bottle probably like every year or so. So pick up a few, try some now, hold some for a couple of years, hold one if you can for, a really long time. See if you can hold it for 10 years and age it and see how the wine evolves over time. Compare it to what it tasted like when you first tasted it and when you tasted it a few years later. You'll be amazed at how the wine changes, and sometimes your palate changes too, but keep some notes and compare, and you'll be able to kind of learn about the life of this wine. So I hope you check it out and like it as much as I do, and I hope you had a great holiday. Cheers.